My own parents went through a really difficult divorce. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of miscommunication, some really big challenges that happened. I didn't speak to my father at all for years of my life. I blamed my father for a lot of things because of a lot of lack of information in some cases. I really believed for a period of time that my personal path to healing was going to be to shut down. No matter how disconnected you are, no matter how long you've gone without speaking to this person that you love, your child, you can turn the ship around, because I saw this not just in my own case, but I've worked with so many people on this. And I really think that this will help get the momentum and help you see the situation differently and be able to shed some of the pain that you've probably been carrying as the father in this situation, because I know that it can't have been easy.
Her name is Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
Thais Gibson.
I hope I pronounce her name properly. Thais Gibson.
I am so excited for you to be here with me today. Thank you for joining us.
If your daughter has stopped talking to you, believe it or not, she still likely loves you and loves you very much. In fact, she probably loves you and is so confused, lost, and hurt by the disconnect because of how much she cares that she puts up walls to protect herself. And if you're not speaking right now, it doesn't actually necessarily mean that the relationship is doomed forever. And in today's video, I'm going to take you through 5 powerful steps that can help you build that bridge and learn to reconnect, no matter how much time has passed or no matter how helpless you are feeling right now. Before we even get into those 5 steps, I'm going to share this with you because I'm hoping that my own story will give you hope. So as a very short version of a long story, I grew up in a family where there was a lot of passion, a lot of intensity between my parents, and a lot of deep care and a lot of deep love. But unfortunately, my own parents went through a really difficult divorce. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of miscommunication, some really big challenges that happened. And I won't get into all of that just out of respect to my own family. But at the end of the day, I was somebody who as a kid, ended up taking a lot of the pain and not having my own understanding and not having a complete understanding here, hearing a little bit more of one side of a story than the other, which essentially led to me cutting off my father as a kid. I didn't speak to my father at all for years of my life. I played soccer in university and got a full ride soccer scholarship to a university in Georgia. And I cut off my dad. I left home at 17, didn't talk to my father. I grew up in a family where a lot of people cut each other off. It was something that I saw a lot of and I was sort of exposed to at a young age, so it was normalized. And I was also very much taking in a lot of the pain and challenges I saw growing up between different members of my family throughout, a lot of my family, even extended family. And it sort of hardened my heart. And I blamed my father for a lot of things because of a lot of lack of information in some cases, or wrong information or incompleteness of things. And I thought that my path, I really believed for a period of time that my personal path to healing was going to be to shut down. And there was points of time I didn't speak to my mother as well. Like I really shut everybody out of my life. And part of that was because of my own challenges and the phase of life that I was in. But a lot of that is that I absorbed a lot of the pain from my childhood, which if you're watching this, chances are that if your daughter has disconnected from you, she's going through some sort of variation of that. And I did this for years. So I actually had just spoken to my father before making this video. And I thought I had stopped talking to him for, about 4 years. And he said, no, it was 6 years. We had some conversation in that 6 years, but for the better part of 6 years. And today, fast forward many years, we've had a really amazing relationship for the last many years. And that was thanks to the work of both of our parts. But honestly, there were a lot of things that my father did that I think helped me in really learning to see things differently, forgive, let my guard down. And I really just want to share from the professional standpoint, but also from the personal standpoint of what it's like to be a daughter in a situation like that. Probably if you're listening to this, there may be traces or similarities in terms of what your daughter might have gone through. And I can't wait to just share this with you. I think that it's so powerful to move through a lot of this. Now, to dip a little bit deeper into the story, I want to share a more specific thing that happened that really changed everything for me. And we'll pull this into some of the major steps that I'll take you through today. But I remember I was 21 years old and I got really into personal growth. I decided I wanted to change my life, wanted to heal. And I've been doing a good bit of work and healing. And I remember doing a course. It was a certification course that was trauma informed. And I sat down and it said, okay, what are your stories about your parents? And let's change them. So I sat down, and a big narrative I had around my father was this narrative of betrayal. and that I felt betrayed by different situations. And the course asked me to sit down and say, well, where was the opposite also true? And one of the suggested words for the opposite was cherished. And, I'm 21 years old and my heart is sort of hardened, and I've learned to shut down as a coping mechanism. And I went, oh, cherished. Okay. Well, there was this and this, and I was sort of intellectualizing it, but I wanted to keep an open mind and an open heart because I knew that there were going to be things that I wasn't quite seeing. And I looked and I said, okay, no, where did I feel cherished? And what I realized, and honestly, I feel like I get emotional every time I tell this story. What I realized is that during the years that I hadn't spoken to my father, that no matter what, he would text me once, sometimes twice a week. And he would repeatedly try to call throughout those years as well. And I wouldn't answer, and I would ignore the call, and I would shut him out. And at 21 years old, for the first time, I sat there and thought about what it would feel like to be my father. And I thought about all of the times that he would sit there and know that I wasn't going to answer, that he would text me anyways because that's what he wanted to do and that he wasn't giving up. And I for the first time, I was sitting there and I was sitting in a Starbucks coffee shop doing this work. And I sat there and I remember being like, oh my gosh, like actually putting myself in his shoes and seeing the heartbreak that he would have had to endure and go through that. And I remember sitting there and I had sunglasses on, and I remember putting my sunglasses on thinking, oh God, I'm going to cry in the Starbucks. And then, the tears are flowing. And I kept just envisioning my dad sitting there texting, trying to reach out, knowing he was going to get rejected. It makes me like emotional to think about now. And knowing that he was going to keep enduring that rejection no matter what. And I went from sitting in the coffee shop with the sunglasses on to being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bawl. I'm going to like actually sob. And walking into the bathroom, and thank God there was nobody in the bathroom. And I just opened the door and shut it. And I honestly dropped to my knees and I sobbed. And when I think of this, it's not sad. It's like cathartic. It was something that so deeply like changed and softened my heart, because I had carried all of this like resentment, and it really deeply changed for me. I'm having a hard time, honestly, not getting emotional telling the story, because it just like, it was so deeply heart opening for me. It was so deeply life changing to see that and to realize that. And all of these years of resentment and anger that I had carried, in a large part due to a lot of misunderstandings, it felt like I just washed away, like just really deeply realizing that. And that honestly like rebuilt and transformed the relationship that I have to my father today. And we have a wonderful relationship now. And it's something I'm so grateful for. And honestly, it's something that has allowed me to have a very healthy marriage to an amazing man today. I always say that whatever we don't forgive in our parents, we often bring into our adult romantic relationships. And I do really believe that. And it also, as a person, taught me the beauty of forgiveness. Like, I'm going to get into the steps in just a second, I promise, but it taught me the beauty of forgiveness. It was something that transformed my life in such a meaningful way, because I had no idea how to forgive before that. And when I just felt like all of that, it was very cathartic, like this deep emotion wash over me and just kind of pour out of me and be released. I was like, I need to do this with everything. How do I get into a place where I can let go of more stuff? Because that just felt so powerful to let go of. And so my hope is that in going into this today, I can share a little bit of that personal narrative with you, and some of the things that I worked with personally, but I also worked in private practice and then have been in this field for about 14 years now, helping people in all sorts of ways in their relationships. So I'm going to share a guide with you. And I want you to know that if you're here listening today, there can be a lot of reasons. There can be endless reasons of misunderstanding, of pain, of mistakes. I mean, we could go into anything and everything in terms of why daughters, disconnect from their fathers. But I truly believe that no matter how disconnected you are, no matter how long you've gone without speaking to this person that you love, your child, that you can turn the ship around, because I saw this, not just in my own case, but I've worked with so many people on this. And I'm going to give you a guide. And honestly, we can go into so much more than this. There's so much nuance to some of these steps, but I really think that this will help get the momentum and help you see the situation differently and be able to shed some of the pain that you've probably been carrying as the father in this situation, because I know that it can't have been easy. Starting with number one, okay? And I would see this all the time with fathers, and I get it. I get where it's coming from, but it's the worst mistake to make, and it makes everything so difficult. The first thing is you have to get out of learned helplessness. So one of the biggest things I would see all the time is that so much time passed, and fathers felt so frozen when it came to talking to their kids. They felt so like, where would I even begin? How? And they assume that because their child's not talking to them, and they've probably had a couple of times where they've tried to reach out and reconnect, and they've been shut down or shut off, that they freeze and they tell themselves the story that, oh, my child doesn't want to talk to me. I promise you, your child cares so much and your child wants to hear from you. But because they're your child, they expect you to lead the way. They expect to have that reinforcement and connection from their parent first to know that it's safe for them to connect with you. And I think that fathers get into the situation where they think that because they've been rejected, they assume that their child's like, no, I'm not forgiving. I truly don't want to hear from this person. And guess what? Sometimes your kids will say that. Sometimes they'll say, I don't want to talk to you ever again. And it's not a reflection of reality. It's a reflection, the vast majority of the time, of their hurt. Okay. So they're speaking from hurt, not truth. And so the first thing is that you have to get out of learned helplessness. And too many fathers, they give up. They think, okay, my child doesn't want to talk to me, so they give up. I can tell you right now, there's probably not a child on the planet that is in a position where they're like, oh, I want my parent to cut me off and to never talk to me either. Okay, that's probably not the reality at all. Okay, so number one, get out of learned helplessness. It doesn't mean you have to be showing up at the door with flowers all of a sudden. It means that what you ideally want to be doing is, even if it's small, even if it's like, in the story with my own father, like send a message once a week and have some sort of element of consistency. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Hey, I miss you. Hey, was thinking of this memory with you. Hey, was thinking of this time with you and how much fun we had. Or, hey, would love to try ABC with you. Like, would love to go on a hike with you. Whatever it might be, you want to speak from a place of showing consistency and care. And even if it's small and even if it's hard, then that's going to be the best approach. Okay. And this is what we're going to do in terms of building a foundation. Small things. If you do really big things, really grandiose gestures too much too early, that can feel confusing to somebody. But small, consistent gestures over time show stability, consistency, which in turn, stability and consistency are foundational building blocks of trust. And once there's trust, that person, your daughter, will let her guard down and be more open to actually connecting again. Okay. So think of that stability, that consistency, that effort as being something that signifies to your daughter that they might be able to trust you and reconnect with you. Okay. So that's just like a very high level point number one. Okay. Point number two is, as that happens, if you start to get some exchanges and communication, and honestly, I can go so into depth about how to communicate and what to say, but I'm going to take you through some higher level pieces in a moment. But number two is that one of the worst things that I would see fathers do, or parents do, because this does happen every so often with mothers as well, is that when you actually start spending time around your child, if you're getting access to them, unfortunately, because the father, when they lose interaction with their child, they grieve as well. And sometimes you lose interaction with your kids because you weren't showing up for a period of time, and then you guilt yourself into oblivion, and then you think, no, I'm not even worth having a connection. They're better off without me. And you justify all of these things. And so then when you go into finally interacting with your child, if this does happen years later, far too often fathers make this crucial mistake. And the mistake is that especially if they were the type of, situation where they were pit against their child by the other parent. So let's say the mother pit the father against the kids. The father, it has experienced so much grief. And believe it or not, you go through your own deep abandonment issues, losing connection to your own child, to the point that then you think, okay, if I can just explain it to them, if I can just tell them why it's not my fault and why there's more to this story, then by explaining this to them, they will be in a position where they will end up finally understanding me and I won't lose them again. And I saw this over and over again with fathers. It was so heartbreaking. They would come to me and say, it's not going well. I'd meet them for the first time. They'd say, I'm trying to reconnect with my daughter, but I'm seeing this situation where it's like I spend time with them and they just resent me more. And I'd unpack with them, well, what are you doing? What kind of conversation are you having? And they jump into either trying to prove themselves to their daughter because they feel guilty and now they're overcompensating by trying to prove themselves and say who they are and how they can be a good father and sort of prove in that way. Or more often than not, try to make the child understand their point of view for what went wrong, especially in really tricky divorces. And all that leads is, especially if a child was pitted against the father, it leads this child to sit there and think, see, all you want to do is talk about yourself. See, all it is about you. Oh my gosh, you are selfish. All these narratives that I've heard are true. And it's not coming from that. The relationship you have to it as a father is not coming from trying to be selfish or trying to get your daughter to think you're so amazing. Usually your relationship to that is coming from a place of like, I need to be heard and understood because if they just understand me, I won't lose them again. It unfortunately drives a bigger wedge the vast majority of the time between you and your child. What you need to be able to do instead is start by getting to know them again. Start by asking them questions, being curious about who they are, because kids need to feel safe. They need to feel seen. They need to feel special. And part of rebuilding that connection is feeling like, rather than you telling them who you are, show them. Ask them questions about them, be present, be attuned, be interested in their lives, even if they're slow to open up. Be curious anyways. Have patience to know that some of that information that you learn about them might be something that takes time to build up. And as you do that, you are showing them who you are. And that is the only thing that ultimately will help you overcome the different stories. You can always come back once you've really built a relationship and explain some details or some things that you felt like were miscommunications or they misunderstood about you. But if that happens too early, I'm telling you, it will drive your child further away. Okay. So that's really number 2. I have a free gift for you that we're doing just for a limited time. It is a course all about nervous system regulation and somatic processing of emotions. It will help you feel secure, safe, and connected to yourself. It's one of our 6 major pillars of healing your attachment style. And it's literally for free with our 7-day free trial access to the Personal Development School. And you can check it out down below. Number 3, and part of this in terms of how to communicate, is learning to connect to your child's needs. Every person has a unique set of needs, and it's when they feel the most connected to other people is when they're actually in those needs. So for example, I'm somebody who loves personal growth. And if I go and I meet a stranger at the park and I'm sitting on a park bench and they talk about personal growth, I will immediately feel like I click with them. If I instead meet a stranger and they want to talk about history, and I kind of don't like history very much, I'm not that interested, well, then I'm going to feel kind of like I want to get away from the stranger on the park bench. I want to go do something else because it's not in alignment with my subconscious needs. So a huge part of the way we bond, especially with people that we're trying to get to know, is we try to notice what their needs are. Their needs are going to be the things that they naturally talk about the most, the things that they actually surround themselves with. So if they always have, a soccer ball around, maybe they love soccer or sports. If they always have some sort of type of book around that's maybe related to personal growth or to math or to science or, to some sort of entertainment, those are the things that they probably really care about and think about a lot. And so when somebody's talking to you and the things that you actually value, that you find really interesting, that's when you start to build momentum. Okay. So being in a position where you can notice, what does my child talk about the most? Maybe not just to me, but to their friends. What does my daughter, light up when she talks about? What does she always bring around her? What's always close to her? And maybe she is really interested in her friends, ask questions about her friends. But these types of things. So noticing some of her needs and the things that are of interest to her and asking her questions, being present, being curious about that. And even if you don't have all the right questions or you don't say all the right things, do not hold yourself to a state of perfection. It doesn't, every time you spend time with her doesn't have to be perfect. And if it wasn't perfect, everything's going to crash and burn and fall apart. You just have to show across time that you're caring, that you are present, and that you want to get to know her. Those are the most, again, foundational building blocks. Okay. So really connecting to her needs, learning to be present. And also, I want to say, and this is our point number 4 here, is that you want to make sure that in general, you process your hurt around this. You have to process your own emotions first. If you have not processed your abandonment, your hurt, your frustration with the situation, your helplessness, your grief, you are going to take it into the relationship with your daughter. You're going to feel some degree, because you're a human and it's going to happen. You might feel some degree of resentment back to her because she hurt your heart too. Okay. And it's such a tricky thing because, at the end of the day, the parent is the parent. And especially if your daughter is a child, it's obviously the parent's responsibility to know how to show up or to do their best and to definitely lead the way back to reconciliation. Um, but it doesn't mean that you aren't carrying something. And sometimes those things that you haven't worked through, those fears, can lead to you clinging too much or becoming controlling of the situation, or can lead to you shutting down yourself that she'll pick up on as hurt and then push you away back. Like there can be a lot of really nuanced situations here. It doesn't mean you have to process everything and be perfect, but it's really important for you to learn to process some of your emotions as well in the situation. Another really big and important one is to learn to validate her feelings. So when she feels hurt or frustrated, and this is really number 5, when she feels hurt or frustrated, you want to be able to say, hey, I see that this is uncomfortable for you right now. And maybe I don't have all the answers that are the perfect thing to say, but I'm here and I care. And if you can say, hey, I get that this hurts, or hey, I know that this is hard, or hey, I know that this is a little bit uncomfortable, but I want to keep building with you. We're not going to always be perfect, but I want to keep connecting. Let's try to figure out how to talk through this. Or what do you need to feel better right now? Like, what can I do to support you? If you ask these types of questions, these are the ways that you don't have to ever have a perfect answer. Nobody has all the answers. People who thrive in human relationships, especially in familial relationships, they don't have all the answers, but they know how to ask the right questions. And so just some things to have on hand. And again, I can put this more in depth in a guide because I have all this material up here from working with people around this. But you can say things like, I see that you feel a little bit hurt right now. This is hard, but I really care. And what can I do to try to make it better? And you can also say, hey, I'm here to rebuild with you. I know that we're going to go through hard times sometimes, but I'm here to weather those hard times and to figure it out together. These types of things help a child realize that you're the leader in the situation and that they can follow your lead, that you're trusted to, that if you have faith that you're going to figure things out in the relationship, and if you show that, and if you show commitment and effort, and if you show your humanity, because humanity is so important, your own vulnerability. Hey, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes sometimes, but I want to try to work through them. And I'm going to be okay if you make mistakes too. I'm here for you too. When you show humanity, when you show humility, when you show that you can validate her emotions, you can empathize with her. When you ask her what she needs or what would make things better, even if she doesn't know right away, those are things that help build such a powerful bridge of connection between people, no matter how difficult things are, or no matter how far apart you currently are from that person. And it goes a very, very long way. And the very last thing that I'll say, because I could really make a 4-hour video about this, but the last thing that I'll say is that it's really important that you share a little bit of yourself over time too. So small life updates, little things that are going on about yourself. They don't have to be big things, and you definitely don't want to connect with her and then like be in the spotlight and make it all about you, because that could reinforce, especially if you're in a bad divorce and there's been some pitting from one parent against another, those types of situations. Share yourself slowly over time. Have the conversation where you give updates. Oh, I had, this is what my boss is like at work, or, these are the people I'm working with, or this is what I did on the weekend, so that she can see and come to know who you are. And if you are able to show up and you're able to get to know her and be present and be curious and be attuned, if you're able to show that consistent effort across time, irrespective of potentially feeling rejected or feeling like it's hard sometimes, if you were able to connect to her needs and figure out, what makes her light up and speak into those things and support her in those things and validate her feelings and share a little bit over time about you. And if you're able to be the leader in knowing that you're not going to be perfect, that neither of you is going to have the perfect answer to everything, but that you're going to keep showing up, you're going to keep asking what she needs to bridge those gaps. And you're going to say, hey, I'm here to weather the storms. I want to rebuild this with you. Doing these things, I personally believe, because I've seen it over and over again, not just in my own life, but also in countless relationships that have helped people through some of these things around. I personally believe that no matter how long you've gone without talking, you can really have a deeply connected, close relationship with somebody, even if you're starting from miles apart.
And I do have one last really big one here that the timing has to be right for. This isn't something that you necessarily want to do over a text message before spending time together, but if you have started to reconnect and build a little bit of a bond and you've had a couple of times hanging out together, One of the most important things is that if you do feel like there were mistakes that you made as a parent, that you were able to honor those, that you were able to own them, to be accountable. I mean, accountability is one of the most foundational building blocks of trust. If we know that somebody we're in a relationship with made a mistake and they're willing to come and say, hey, I made a mistake. This is what I did wrong. I apologize. I'm owning my part. Not only does that show tremendous courage, it shows vulnerability, it shows trustworthiness, and it shows that you are somebody who can actually work through something in a relationship because we are human beings. If you made a mistake as a parent, that's okay. You're a human being and you're going to make mistakes. Everybody does and everybody will. But it's how we address those mistakes. It's how we address those human moments and human challenges that goes such a long way. And so, as a parent, being able to lead with that courage that says, hey, I'm not perfect, and here's where I went wrong, that truly is so meaningful to kids in terms of things that they're holding on to or things that they felt hurt by. It really allows them to reconcile. And a huge part of forgiveness is us being able to see those things, have those conversations. And it's also a huge part of what makes for healthy marriages and long-term relationships in so many ways. But that's a really important part. Of course, the timing does matter for big conversations, but hopefully that helps as a really powerful bonus tip as well.
I hope this is helpful for you. It's such a sensitive topic to so many people. And my heart really feels for people who are going through this, both the children who are missing their fathers and fathers themselves who are deeply missing their kids and don't know what to do. But I'm here to support you and guide you through this. And if you have questions, let me know in the comments down below. You can also subscribe to this channel for more videos. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Share it with friends and family who are on their journey of personal development and growth. And thank you for listening. Next week, we'll be back with more insights to guide you on your journey. And until then, keep practicing our tools and strategies to change your subconscious mind and apply some of the powerful learnings from this podcast so that you experience real life transformation.